Hello, everybody. It is the me, Game Penguin 21, and today, oh boy, looks like we've got a bunch of things to go through. Now, again, last week I decided to take off because it was Thanksgiving. I had a lovely Thanksgiving for all of you in America, Thanksgiving stuff. But now it's on to Christmas season and more of stuff happening. Well, that being said, I think we're going to take another couple this week to just kind of take a break, reset, and we're just going to look at some random stories that I just happened to do. This one's going to be on the two bigger stories that were within the past week. I didn't get all of them because the one story that I didn't get was that the Lego Horizon game, which apparently the Horizon games have sincerely been cursed for the rest of this time, but the Lego Horizon game released to very bad numbers and released to a peak player count worse than Concord. Now, I will say this, that doesn't necessarily mean it equals sales or whatever, and it is a single player game, and it is a Sony property that requires a PSN account, and there is like a review out there where someone bought it for their kid and they had to create a PSN account, and they couldn't do it for like 3 days, and they needed to buy a second controller because all of the actual hoops that they had to jump through took like several days because they couldn't make a PSN account. So all those fanboys out there that say, "Oh, the PSN account is for this, blah blah blah." So yeah, But there was also another thing which kind of leads me into the video proper that released this time, which was Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl, the much anticipated sequel to the Stalker franchise, or a sequel to this. You know what I mean. Any case, without being further ado, let's get into the video proper, starting of course off with Stalker 2, then we'll move into the Kadokawa thing, and I'll give my opinion on both of those. But that being said, if you like what it is that I do and want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, other than a like and subscribe, which is always enough, please hit that like and that subscribe button, stuff down below. And if you want to go and give me money or whatever stuff, or support me in other ways, links down to everything in the description below. With that being said, let's start off again with a very classic Porter Rock 77 tweet. Now, he is actually retweeting the PC Gamer Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl, single-handedly saved 24 for being absolute rubbish year for gaming. That's more of an opinion piece, and PC Gamer kind of makes these opinion pieces sometimes, where Porter Rock 77 comes in and says, PC Gaming is that bad, Stalker 2 saved it, skull emoji. I mean, there was a lot of other releases there, and this is clearly an opinion piece or whatever. Plus, who the fuck cares? PC Gamer is up and it's down and it's whatever. And I don't think this is one of those articles. But I mean, Stalker 2 comes in here with an over 100k in-game subscriber or in-game accounts of stuff, and 150k concurrent players on this. So it's actually pretty cool, pretty interesting. Now the Democracy X Band Street, that one's very actually. Despite it being a very kind of soft reply, I did go into the response of DeMarcus's thing, and yeah, this is clearly a meme. Of course, PC gamers don't buy games, apparently, when looking at the Stalker. So we'll get into a more sincere thing with a couple tweets later, but of course, we then have that person you love to hate, where they retweet that Stalker 2 has gone through literal hell of the gaming thing to bring it over the line. And the response here is quite interesting, saying, no, they don't get to use that lame-ass excuse when the game looks and performs like Mike Tyson Cheeks on Friday, but they're marketing the game like this. You know what other game went through a development hell, but still turned out really good despite everything that was happening? Halo 2. The original Bungie guys, when they went through to make Halo 2, actually ended up having a lot of problems and really kind of just fucked themselves over, but they still managed to put over the line a great game. It wasn't great maybe at launch, as some people might forget because of nostalgia blindness, but at this point, having a game that is this functional, that actually has a lot of the stuff, and also given the fact that I think Stalker 2's developers were in the middle of Ukraine and had to, not have the way to be at the office because of the whole war that's happening over there that kind of people came to have forgotten about. So I would say if anyone deserves that we had a little bit of a trouble or we had a bunch of problems with it, I would say these guys have definitely earned that right alongside the Halo 2 developers. But again, that's more of a distance thing and stuff like that. So yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, they were in Ukraine and places like that. So kind of makes you think. And of course, we come back over to what I said earlier with this tweet from the PlayStation guy, but we talk about Nico first, saying that Game Pass destroy sales, with the reality with Stalker 2 actually being in the top sellers list on Steam. Now, this is up by 97 points, so it means it was within the top 100 sellers of, I believe this is supposed to be weeks, so this has been there for 2 weeks. It was in second place. I think now, concurrently, it's up to the first place ones, though I'm unsure of that current number, but it did have a lot of really good sales. But then X squared circle triangle, or Dejoki here, comes over and says player counts aren't sales. I'm going to read that again for the people who are in the back who didn't hear me. This guy looks at a top sellers list, a list of the games that track the top sellers officially from Steam, mind you, that say, hey, this thing is number 2 in selling the amount of copies that it is. And this guy comes in and says player counts aren't sales. This is not SteamDB, this is Steam official numbers, and this is the top sellers list. Sellers as in copies of the game. Oops. So yeah, I think he was clearly thinking of SteamDB stuff. But going and looping back right on around to Porter Rock 77, where he is replying to a comment that says, lies. They're all upset that Xbox games dominating their console all year long. Also, they same blue console warrior crowd claims the PC and Xbox don't buy games. Ignore Space Marine 2 was a top seller on PC and Xbox and never made the top 15 beloved PS5. Where Porter Rock comes in with Xbox game dominated PS5 all year long. Name me one Xbox game that was never on PlayStation before that was dominated PS5 more than Helldivers 2 all years long. I think that that's an unfair comparison, first off, because while Helldivers 2 in and of itself wasn't originally there, again, it's off of Xbox and that's an unfair comparison. I think that a more fair comparison would actually be Sea of Thieves, and I continuously bring this up, by the way, but Minecraft was the last to get crossplay on the PlayStation system, and I don't think that the PlayStation has an update for Xbox for their Minecraft as of right now. Unsure about that. But, what about Sea of Thieves, which I think actually did do a pretty decent job. And you guys were actually bragging about it being a top seller, saying, hey, they needed to get more sales, so they brought it over the PS5. Or what about, what was it? Hi-Fi Rush. That's the one. Anyway, blanking on that aside, moving on over to here, where Best of the Truth here talks over and says the PlayStation fans are Xbox in last place. Me of what? The last time I checked, Xbox platform was available on billions of devices across the world. Astrobot flopped. That's more of an opinion. I think it actually did pretty well. PSVR 2 flopped. That is true because, again, of the sales numbers. The Portal flopped. The Portal was but again, I still don't think it's the greatest thing ever. Get a Steam Deck. And Sony has to pay Microsoft 80% of the revenue from Black Ops 6 sales on PS5. Now, that is actually factually true. Now, not all of this is actually stuff that I would agree with. I would agree that the PSVR 2 didn't do the best that it could have because, again, had they had the PC and the PSVR 2 cross-compatible from the start, I think that they would have made a lot more sales. Astrobot, well, it lived up to its expectations. It was Astrobot. The Portal wasn't the greatest, but we'll get into that in a second. And Sony has to pay Microsoft 80%. That one's more of a funny thing. Also, I don't think it's 80%. I think it's actually 70% because of the 70-30 split that's been industry standard for years. So, yeah, just to kind of rip apart that point. But then this person comes back in here and says, lists a load of PlayStation things that he says flop because their sales, and in the same tweet says Xbox is available on billions of devices, but they can't break 30 million subs for Game Pass and barely sold 137 Xbox Series consoles, and the danger mouse really is the thing of pig shit. Well, maybe that's because Xbox has kind of shifted their mentality into selling more games and making more off of the game sales, because that's where it seems to be a lot of the money lies, and less focusing on the console stuff, though they're still focusing at least somewhere on the hardware stuff, just not, making a refresh that is very, very much so unneeded. And speaking of the unneeded refresh, here we have a thing at Mike Jaz Azamar. I fucked up that name entirely. Talking about how the PS5 Pro 8K 30 FPS, 4K 60 FPS, you don't know if either of those are true. I don't even think that they can hit 8K. PSVR 2, 4K 90 to 120 hertz. PS Portal 1080p, 60 FPS, cloud streaming, no PS5 required. Sony is a bad, bad man. Now, this is true. The thing with the PlayStation Portal now is that they recently released an update to the PlayStation Portal that doesn't allow the PlayStation to be needed as of now. This wasn't a thing on release, and it has to be all cloud streamed games. You can't actually put anything onto this device because it has no internal storage. I would still recommend a Steam Deck over this because you can put a lot of things onto the Steam Deck, including maybe some of the PlayStation stuff and some of the Xbox stuff, and have access to all of that using cloud streaming as well, and you still have its own devices for that. Now, to go apart with the other two, yeah, the PlayStation VR 2 isn't the greatest, but again, you can get a adapter that's like $60 a bit more for that. But again, that's irrevertible of the fact of if you calculate out all of this, you are spending about, let's say, I think about maybe $2,000 roughly, because it's around, it's depending on where you live. This is about $800 for the PS5 Pro. I think this is still at $300 to $400. Maybe it's bumped up to $500 at this point, with the PlayStation Portal being another $300. So that's about, again, I think it's about it's definitely more than $1,000 at this point. So you are spending $1,000 plus to actually get this whole system set up for everything, right? Why not just buy a PC for that amount? Like, you're saying, oh, we PC players, we overpay for our stuff. You get not so good stuff for more money. Like, it's the same money sink here with all these devices that you could possibly save on the specific ones, where you could get, like, say, a Steam Deck to replace the Portal, and a used VR system to replace this. Sometimes people are just giving those away, and you can get a computer with some of the remaining money that you save. So, no, this isn't great. But next up, we have, of course, Nicola being kind of a hypocrite here, talking about how such a precious sight, seeing a self-righteous clown with the easiest block trigger on the platform indulge into some harmless console war buffoon. Now, I don't think that he is a block-heavy person, at least Nicola isn't, but yeah, totally Nicola, the middle person who is quote-unquote not a console fanboy, decides to call someone a console fanboy. I don't know, seems kind of suspicious to me. But now we get into the back half of this video, and the back half we're going to be completely talking about the Kadokawa initiative. Now, of course, this is where kind of it all started, where the rumor from FoamSoft there. I think this is confirmed where they are in talks to buy Kadokawa. This is bad for a number of reasons. I'm going to leave this tweet up from Pure PlayStation for a little bit, but overall, looking at all of this, every single aspect of this kind of doesn't make much sense, but it also makes some sense because Sony has been slowly trying to get their hands on the anime industry, not the gaming industry, oddly enough, for a while. Now, again, the gaming stuff, they are definitely trying to dominate, of course, obviously, because they want to just do that. But they have been slowly trying to dominate at least the anime industry for a while. Now, Kadokawa itself does distribute anime, as I did actually have to look this up. And there is a lot of people out there who are probably going to go into more detail about this if this is confirmed to happen, though unsure about that. But this is bad for a number of reasons. Like, it's not just bad for like that, it's like they were approached by them, and it's like, I don't know how to really put this, but the one big thing that I wanted to talk about in this section is Bonnie here. Now, Bonnie, in and of herself, decided to try to throw this little wrench into the thing and talk about, in case you didn't get the message the first time, they helped create the Souls genre, You Buffoon. Japan Studios co-developed Demon Souls with From Software, in case you forgot. They also bankrolled the whole damn thing. Misinformation is hard, and talking about how Sony should keep greedy hands away from their betters. Now, I had to do some research on this, and I would say this. Sony deserves no credit in the creation of the Souls genre. They may have been the publisher for it, but I would say that of all the people that were working on this game, the Souls genre belongs mostly to From Software, because while yes, Demon Souls wasn't that successful, Sony still passed on doing, say, a sequel, prequel, or equal to Demon Souls, and From Software just continued to make the game that they wanted to, and found a different publisher and found a different people to work under that actually believed in their vision. Sony never believed in the vision enough for that. In fact, there's a very famous story where they had to kind of go behind the back of them in order to actually release the Demon Souls trailer, or even release Demon Souls to begin with, at least in terms from what we've had there. Allegedly, by the way. All of this is alleged stuff. Now, Japan Studios did end up becoming a quote-unquote co-developer, but they were in more of an advisory role, and I would say that they deserved more credit than Sony, because at least they worked on the game. Sony just bankrolled it pretty much, and they didn't even bankroll the game that they ended up getting, because they didn't want From Software to make that game, at least according to them, because again, they passed on the Souls genre the first time. Had they stuck with them and actually had them make Demon Souls under Sony, maybe we would be talking a different story here. But I would still say, regardless of that, the publisher doesn't necessarily at all deserve a lot of the credit when it comes to making the games. Like, would you say Microsoft was the reason that Halo became a big thing? No, you would say it was Bungie or 343 that made Halo the way that it is. You don't blame the publisher for the faults of the developers, just like you don't blame the developers for the faults of the publishers. That's not how this shit works. And you saying, oh yeah, they were helped created the Souls genre? Bullshit. They didn't even care for enough to get the sequel to Demon Souls, or to get a Demon Souls sequel, or to even put Dark Souls under their umbrella, because they didn't believe in it. So guess what, ma'am? No, they didn't help create the Souls genre. It was clearly 100%. It was a lot of From Software, a fair bit of Japan Studios, and all Sony did was just write the checks, and they were buffoonery into writing the checks for a game that they didn't technically want. So, there. Anyway, rant over. This tweet, I went back and forth with them for a while, and let me be honest, I just wanted to get that whole rant off of my chest, because I think that I defended myself pretty poorly when it came to this, because I was a little bit uninformed. I'm more informed now, but yes. Moving on to Unleashed here with the game where it all started. A whole new genre was born. It's amazing to see From Software will be finally joining their original home, PlayStation. Do I even need to go on that whole rant again? Just go back to the rant that I did before, and you'll see why this is pissing me off a little bit. But at the end of the day, I'm not that angry, and, it's all fun and games at the end of the day. But to kind of round off this video for a couple of other things over this little rant, I'm going to just flash up a couple of tweets where they've just had this whole thing kind of boop-a-doop, boop-boop. So yeah, but next up here we have Pirate Nation to kind of round out this video because, again, pretty neat. Pirate Nation puts up a Stellar Blade, Black Myth Wukong, and a couple of other games that were really popular this year, going over the graves of, say, Dustborn, Outlaws, and a few of these other ones. So we have Rue here, and we're going to correct each of these in order, so follow along, people. This will be on the test. Number 1, Outlaws and Stellar Blades sold roughly the same amount. Who cares? Outlaws in and of itself was still a piss-poor game, and Stellar Blade sold the same amount, I think, upon its release, so it's still actually actively selling in that context, whereas Outlaws only just kind of hit that number within its first week. So, Next up here, we have Dustborn is a small indie game. That's not an excuse. It was still really piss poor, and I think it didn't even hit 100 concurrent players, and it was made poorly with the amount that it was there. So, again, not even getting into the woke stuff, quote-unquote, that people were complaining about. It was just a poorly designed game overall. 3, Assassin's Creed Shadows hasn't been released yet, but a lot of people are going to say it's going to be dead on arrival. And looking at even just the gameplay, yeah, this doesn't look to be like a great game in and of itself. So, yeah, maybe you can have taken that out there and made it a little stronger and said, no one cares about Concord. Clearly, you haven't seen the PlayStation community, because a lot of them actually did and said that Concord was going to be fucking awesome. And then when it wasn't, they just completely switched their stories. Oops. But with all that being said, I think that'll about do it for me ranting into this microphone for about like 20 minutes now. So I had a lot to say over the holiday break. I will be doing a part 2 to this, which will be more smaller stories that I have collected over the course of the last week of this. This was more of just the general November month. And then I will also try to see if I can get you a Harmon Smith video before the end of the year. So yeah, with that being said, we have now entered December and the holiday season is upon us. I am not going to be making a holiday album or single or anything this year for the holiday season. I will possibly be in the new year releasing my next album though for my music and stuff. If you want to catch me again on places such as Twitch and YouTube and stuff, hit that subscribe button, hit the links in the description to everything that you want me to do. I do have a Ko-fi and I do have a Patreon, that both of them have been been used in a while. But the Ko-fi is more just for if I decide to make extra videos for whatever reason. I'd post them there. So yeah. In any case, with all that being said, my name is GamePango21, and a peace off.